1 hour versus 1 day versus 1 week. I challenged myself to carve the same pumpkin with these time constraints to see what effect time would have on the quality of my work. Let's get right into it. All right, we have 1 hour on the clock. Let's go. For this 1 hour carving, I glued up a big block of 2x4s, and I'm using my chainsaw to basically take off as big of chunks as possible without ruining the shape of the pumpkin. And we have a problem here. Something is wrong with my chainsaw. I'm pressing the trigger here and nothing is happening. It's not the battery. I switched out the batteries. We have our time that is just going so quickly. Luckily, I have a backup chainsaw and we are back in business. I only have about 20 minutes left and I still have to put all the lines in the pumpkin to make it look like an actual pumpkin. And this got me actually thinking, what are the lines on pumpkins? And like different squashes and stuff, they have those little striations, those indents. What is the function of those? Like when you cut into a pumpkin, there's no kind of internal structure that would seem to make those. So I'm just kind of curious as I'm carving them, what are they actually for? So if you know, maybe you're a pumpkin expert, let us all know. We want to know. Oh. That was tiring. I wish I would have spent less time rounding it out and more time detailing out the crevices here. I think it's just a little too rough for my liking. Yes, you know, it looks like a pumpkin, but I'm never pleased. I want to finish this thing, but I can't because this is the 1 hour challenge. I'm going to show you guys the finished detailed shots of this at the very end, and stick around because I have a big surprise with this guy. All right, let's get to the 1 day build. This is a beautiful piece of walnut burl I've had just laying around my shop for a couple years, and I think this is the perfect opportunity to use it for this pumpkin carving. Now I have a full day to carve this thing, and I decided it would be best to just do an average work day, so I quickly Googled that, and it turns out between 8 and 9 hours is the average American work day. So I'm gonna give myself 8.5 hours to do this, and I'm hoping that's enough time to make a finished piece. That is, unless I break another tool. I seem to be having a bit of a rocky start. The bandsaw blade got pinched and stuck in this piece of wood. What I'm trying to do here is break down this wood so I can glue it up into a solid block. But it turns out my blade is so dull, it's basically like bringing a spoon to a sword fight. Alright, now that I have a new blade on, let's get back to work. I'm gonna go ahead and stop the timer here while this thing cures. It's probably gonna take around an hour before I could start carving, and let's just call this my unpaid lunch break. So this won't be on the clock, but when I come back, it'll be ready to carve. Hey guys, I have a goal of reaching 1 million subscribers. I'm a long ways off from that right now, but if you're watching this video, you can help me reach my goal. And in return, I'll show you guys how I sharpen this pencil. This pencil sharpening is for subscribers only, so if you're not subscribed, close your eyes or just hit that sub button to help me reach my goal. Thanks, guys. If you've been paying attention closely, you might have noticed that I cut off the stem. I have plans for this if I have time, and I want to carve the stem in a different species of wood to have a really cool contrast. This one is a little bit more tiring and tedious sanding than this one that I didn't sand at all. I have right around 3 hours left. I have at least another hour of sanding. Already exhausted. There is a long ways to go still, and I am going to finish this thing in the next 3 hours. So let's get back to it. All right, it is almost 4 o'clock. I gotta go pick up the kids. I'm gonna go ahead and pause this. I'm gonna pick them up and then come back to finish this thing later tonight. All right, I picked up the kids. We actually played for a while, had some dinner, did some settling down time. They're inside getting ready for bed, and I'm gonna go ahead and stay out here and finish this thing. All we have left to do is make the stem. Here I'm using some buckeye burl, some offcuts I have laying around. And I'm gonna basically just hand carve this thing into a stem. I'm always interested in hearing what you guys want to see me carve next, so leave a comment on what you want to see, and also let me know if you like these challenge style videos. I have a ton of fun making them, but I'm only going to keep doing them if you guys like watching them. All right, the 1 day challenge. I still can't believe I got this done in only 1 day. It ended up being a lot harder than I thought. For such a simple pumpkin shape, it took a lot of time. Just all of these crevices had to all be carved and hand sanded, and that took a majority of the time. With the addition of this little stem fitting perfectly in there, it just took a lot of time that I wasn't anticipating. I'm gonna show you guys the finished detailed shots of these at the end, but let's get to the 1 week challenge. We have a beautiful piece of buckeye burl here. It is a mess inside, a ton of dirt, ton of bark that all has to be removed. And I want to try and keep these little branches intact. I think these could look really cool in the finished pumpkin. And then once this thing's all cleaned up, I'm going to attempt to do something that I've never done before. Let's get to cleaning up this burl. Okay, here's what I plan on doing that I've never done before. I'm gonna take some tabletop epoxy, brush it on just the inside portion of this burl, and then sprinkle gold powder all over it. What I want the powder to adhere and stick to just the inside of this burl, and then as I carve the pumpkin shape, the natural wood will be all on the outside, but this gold will be shimmering through the inside of it. I've wanted to try this for a really long time, just haven't had the guts to pull a trigger on it, and this pumpkin is going to be the perfect sculpture to try it on. And while we're on the topic of doing new things, I decided to do another new thing, but this time it was a really stupid new thing. I ran out of the Total Boat Fathom resin, which is the deep pouring resin, and I decided instead of waiting a week, why not just mix it with the thick set resin, which is a not so deep pouring resin. So I basically just rolled the dice on this one, and I'd say I have about a 50-50 chance of this working. To make things even more chaotic, I decided to place these 3 pieces of wood in there to basically displace more epoxy to make it higher. What an idiot. I have a bad feeling about this. This fridge is hooked up to a timer, which if it gets above a certain temperature, it'll kick on. When it keeps kicking on, I know something's getting warm in there. So I opened it up, looked at the pressure pot, felt it, it was definitely warm. And that's why I'm super scared right now to open it up. I'm hoping that's not the case, but I think we're gonna have to go ahead and open this thing up early and see what we're dealing with. Ah, no. Just as expected, major cracks. These, obviously, my spacers came completely out and got submerged into it. Well, obviously this didn't work, but the bright side is I get to do another new thing that I've wanted to do for a very long time. See all these cracks here? I want to use a penetrating epoxy which has like a water-like consistency, and I want to mix some gold dust in there and then pour it in these cracks, put it in a pressure pot, and what I'm hoping is that this epoxy seeps into every single crack in this entire piece. So I'm kind of envisioning like a marbled, fractured look inside this clear piece of epoxy. At least that's what I'm hoping for. Let's see if it works out. And we have yet another failure. At least that's what I thought at this point. I poured too thick of the penetrating epoxy and it did its exothermic reaction and cracked yet again. But underneath that gold, you can see that the cracks are filled with the gold pigment. So it did actually work. So I basically have 2 options here. I can start over from scratch and do everything the proper way. Or we see if this ugly duckling can transform into a Cinderella-like pumpkin. Or something like that. I don't know. Let's get to carving this thing. I almost forgot to mention, my wife has obviously seen all the finished pumpkins. I'm doing this voiceover after the fact. Anyways, She loves them and she wants to keep them. But we have so many Halloween decorations that if a couple pumpkins go missing, I really don't think she would ever know. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to list a couple of these for sale over on my website. And if they happen to go missing from my home, maybe they could show up in your home. So if you're interested, I'll put a link down in the description. And Jess, if you're watching this video, who am I kidding? She doesn't watch any of my videos. We're good. Anyways, back to the pumpkin. I am hand sanding this thing to around 600 to 800 grit. Now, for reference, the walnut pumpkin that I did, I only sanded to 180 grit. I only had time for 180. Because this is epoxy, and because I want it to be crystal clear, I'm going to sand it all the way to 800 grit. And then, yes, I'm going to try something new again for finishing. Something that I've only done one other time, but I think it'll turn out really good on this one. I've been carving and hand sanding for about 6 hours straight, and watch my thumb right here. It's completely cramped and locked up, and actually after this I had both hands, both thumbs cramping at the same time. This happens quite a bit when I'm carving. I mean, I'm doing some long days out here carving and there's really no way around it. But anyways, I ended up finishing this stem and I really love the little textured details I put on there. I think it really makes this thing pop and just really fit this pumpkin well. We're coming down the home stretch on this sculpture and I'm really liking the way it's looking, but I think I could still add a little wow factor to this piece, and I think I have the perfect idea for that coming up next. We are ready for finish, and like I stated earlier, this is only the second time I've ever done a finish like this. This is just a rattle can lacquer finish. I want it super glossy. I'm going to do around 6 or 7 coats of this and get it as glossy and as clear as possible. It's day 7, the final day of the challenge, and it's time to bring the wow factor. I got these LED flame lights. If you look closely, you could see them flickering like an actual flame. And my plan is to drill 3 holes deep inside the pumpkin, insert these flame lights so the whole inside of the pumpkin glows like a jack-o'-lantern. The only problem is that the lights have battery and wiring that need to be hidden. So instead of drilling out a big hole in the pumpkin and being able to see that, I decided to make a base. And this base is going to house the wiring and battery for the lights. Oh, I'm excited already. Look at this thing light up from the inside. All right, let's finish this thing up. All right, guys, this challenge video was a ton of fun. If you guys have any suggestions of other challenge videos I should do, let me know down in the comments. All right, without further ado, here are the finished pumpkins. You guys thought I was going to forget the surprise, huh? My kids thought this one needed some finishing touches before the final photo shoot, and I couldn't agree more. Here is the final reveal.